Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Now NHL, local experts weighing in on the biggest stories on the ice. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. We've got our Locked On NHL hosts here to recap the playoff action from Tuesday. The Capitals stunned the Panthers in Florida in last night's biggest game.
The biggest game.
The Capitals spoiling the start of the playoff run for the President's Trophy winners in Florida. The Panthers allowed 3 goals in the third to drop their game to Washington, and both Locked On Capitals and Panthers explain how the Caps pulled off the Game 1 upset.
Hello, this is Dan Holme from Locked On Capitals. Will the Washington Capitals take down the Florida Panthers in Game 1? Yes, this Washington Capitals team, who nobody thought was going to be able to take down the President's Trophy winning team, take them down in Game 1 by a score of 4-2. It was a game that saw goals from Evgeny Kuznetsov, TJ Oshie, Tom Wilson, and Lars Eller. You know, this is kind of what I'm talking about. This Washington Capitals team has a pedigree of winning in the playoffs. The Florida Panthers, however, are a bit of an unproven commodity, and they have exposed some weaknesses in the Florida Panthers, most notably in net. Bobrovsky has a history of playing well during the regular season, but struggles in the postseason. So the recipe calls for continuing to pepper him with shots throughout the postseason. Anthony Mantha led the Capitals with 10 hits in Game 1. Vitek Vanacek stopped 30 of 32 shots faced. The Capitals improved to 30-21 in Game 1s. Laviolette didn't offer much on Tom Wilson other than to say he suffered a lower body injury and is going to have to be evaluated. Yes, it is bad news if you're a Washington Capitals fan to hear that Tom Wilson is injured. Maybe not such bad news if you live outside of the Washington area, but nonetheless, we are hoping for a speedy recovery. I'll have complete game breakdown on Locked On Capitals, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Capitals, your team every day.
First game for the Florida Panthers in this round 1 series against the Washington Capitals, and they already lost home ice advantage in this one. What is up, guys? This is Armando Velez from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, and the Florida Panthers dropped Game 1 by a final score of 4-2 against the Washington Capitals here at FLA Live Arena. The story of this game for the Florida Panthers on why they lost was too many turnovers near the blue line, and the Washington Capitals were cutting off a lot of the passes of the Florida Panthers in the neutral zone, which were causing some breakaways going the other way for the Washington Capitals. Sergei Bobrovsky in this one played good enough to win in this one, but too many mistakes by the Florida Panthers. Early on, the Florida Panthers went down 5-on-3, and just as the 5-on-3 ended, it was the Washington Capitals setting the tone early. Even though the Florida Panthers had a 2-1 lead early in the third period, too many mistakes that cost the Florida Panthers this one. So it's right back to the drawing board. Andrew Burnett said that he liked how Aaron Ekblad looked in this one. He said not to the level that he was right before, but nobody expects that after taking almost 2 months off of playing hockey. So tough one tonight for the Florida Panthers, but there's still plenty more games in this 7-game series between these two. So to listen to my recap of this 4-2 loss against the Washington Capitals, make sure to listen to my latest episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, your first listen of the day.
The playoffs could not have started with more drama between the Penguins and the Rangers on Tuesday. Pittsburgh finally won Game 1 after 3 overtimes, and that leaves our Locked On Penguins host with plenty to tell you about postgame.
What the heck just happened with that Pittsburgh Penguins New York Rangers Game 1 triple overtime game? I'm going to pause for just a second. As for those 21 or older, I'm having a Corona just because I got to have something right there. Hey, everyone. I'm Hunter Hodes here with the Locked On Penguins podcast, here to bring you a Locked On Now after the Penguins get a triple overtime Game 1 win to take a 1-0 series lead over the New York Rangers. Evgeny Malkin gets the game-winning goal. This was the Penguins' first triple overtime game since 2010. Also, their first triple overtime win since Peter Sikora in 2008 when he called his shot and took down the Detroit Red Wings in Game 5. The Penguins lost that series in 6 games. But tonight it was just a true team effort. They outplayed the Rangers after the first period. I know they put over 80 shots on net on Igor Shesterkin. They were finally able to get that last one past him. But Casey DeSmith, their second-string goalie, he goes out with cramps or a lower body injury. Louis Domingue, a journeyman goaltender who had only played in just thus less than 5 playoff games, comes in, saves the day, is Mr. Game 1 as Jeff Sackhoff was back in 2016. The Penguins skate away with the victory. Just a ridiculous, chaotic game. And this is going to be a long series. I truly believe that, especially if DeSmith is okay for Game 2. There's really no update on the status, and potentially if Tristan Jarry is able to come back at some point. For more on the Pittsburgh Penguins, you can check out the Locked On Penguins podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
The Colorado Avalanche sending a message to everyone else in the playoffs after the first period of their Game 1 against the Predators. After 5 goals in the first 20 minutes, the Avalanche are playoff ready. Locked On Avalanche has a lot of offense to go over in their recap.
You could not ask for a better start to your series for the Colorado Avalanche. An absolutely dominant performance from beginning to end, and the Avs beat the Predators in Game 1 of their matchup in the postseason 7-2. And we were talking yesterday, Kyle, about how the Avs had to pounce on the Predators, knowing that Predators goalie UC Saros would not be there for at least the first 2 games. They did that so much they had to pull him out of the game after 5 goals. It was just total dominance in Game 1.
This was Mortal Kombat. This would be a flawless victory. The Avalanche, they dominated in every aspect of the game. And it was honestly, even if Saros was healthy, I don't know if he could have withstood the Avalanche, no pun intended, but yes, pun intended, that Colorado brought. It was an incredible game and set the tone for the series.
And if you think the Avs are going to have a letdown after that, you haven't watched this team the past couple of years, because what has happened to them the past number of seasons in the playoffs is only motivating for them this year. Do not expect a letdown. Expect this effort again in game number 2. What a way to start. Avs win it 7-2.
The Predators got embarrassed right out of the gate in Colorado. How can Nashville recover and try to make things interesting in this series going forward? Locked On Predators searches for those answers.
The Nashville Predators were absolutely humiliated in Game 1 of their first round series against the Colorado Avalanche, and there isn't much good to take away from their 7-2 loss. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Kimmel from Locked On Predators. This was, in no uncertain terms, a dumpster fire of a game. It was a perfect storm of a completely flat start, terrible defense, nearly invisible offense, and the UC Saros factor, which we knew going into the series was going to be a problem. With Saros out, David Rittich got the start in net, but he did not finish the night there. Nashville allowed 5 goals in the first period, and Rittich was pulled. Connor Ingram went in the game and finished out the night. There was nearly nothing to like about this performance from the Predators. Probably the only bright spots were Ingram's solid play in net and Matt Duchene scoring his second goal of the night while the crowd at Ball Arena chanted, "Duchene sucks." Other than that, the defense was beat more times than a dusty rug on a clothesline, and it wasn't just the Avs' well-documented speed that was the problem. Nashville got a taste of their own medicine, with Colorado playing a physical, hard-hitting, hard-checking game that absolutely rocked Nashville on their heels. Leah Hextall said that head coach John Hines didn't speak a word on the bench for nearly 10 minutes in this game. And really, what is there for him to say? You can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make him compete at the Stanley Cup playoffs. Look, Nashville was going to have all they could handle against a top-seeded Avalanche team that is loaded with weapons on both sides of the puck. But bringing their worst performance of the season to Ball Arena tonight was an absolute humiliation. There have been times when Nashville has been able to bounce back after a poor performance this season, but I don't know if this team can recover from this drastic of a collapse. This may well end up being a painful, short 4-game series.
Just 1 goal was enough for the Flames to get the win in Calgary over the Stars. Locked On Flames and Stars recaps a physical defensive start to the series.
1 down, 15 more to go. Hello everyone, I'm Jess Belmosto. the host of Locked On Flames, and despite all things going against them, the Flames won in true Flames fashion. Nice 1-0 win over the Dallas Stars tonight. Rasmus Anderson was assessed for a game misconduct, so they lost their top defenseman early on in the first, at the end of the first period, and then of course, it was penalty after penalty, but they successfully killed all of them, and it was great to see. And of course, you could not ask for more out of Jacob Markstrom, and he earned himself another shutout. So just overall great stuff from the Flames, and they're going to need to find that even strength scoring as well as some discipline, because way too many penalties tonight. We'll see you for game 2.
The Dallas Stars lose game 1 of their first round matchup to the Calgary Flames by a score of 1-0 in what was one of the more intense defensive matches we've seen in the early stages of these 2022 playoffs. Hey, everybody, Dane Lewis here with the Locked On Stars podcast, coming to you at the conclusion of Stars versus Flames game 1 in this first round Stanley Cup playoff series. And like I said, this was a very intense physical game. We knew going in this was going to be a physical series. And I mean, Dallas Stars hockey is heavy on emphasizing the defense, and that was the case tonight. I think, as fans of this team, it's easy to feel discouraged because we're down 1-0. But if you look at this game as a whole, I think there's a lot to be encouraged by. I mean, obviously, the Dallas Stars need a spark offensively because they scored no goals in this game, but also Calgary is a very good team all around on offense and defense. Jacob Markstrom led the NHL in shutouts this season, so he is not an easy guy to go against, and the Stars only surrender 1 goal on the power play to Lindholm and to that top line for Calgary, which has been one of the best this season. But I think the Stars came out and won the second period, and I think they played really aggressively and really good in the third. That's not to say that they didn't make mistakes, but I think that this team did enough to prove to themselves, the fans, and the rest of the NHL that they belong in this series and they can be competitive. I don't think just because Calgary wins game 1 that this is a lock that they win the series in 4 or 5. I think this is a game or a series rather, that has the potential to go 6, maybe even 7 games. And I think the Stars can steal a game in Calgary for game 2. And it's going to be interesting to see how they adjust their game plan to come out and go up against the Flames for the second round of this playoff matchup. But the Stars defense was there. Jake Ottinger, fantastic in his first playoff start, saving 25 shots. Was really impressed with him, was really impressed with guys like Michael Raffl and Yanni Hakanpää making their Dallas Stars playoff debut. Lots to talk about with this game. We will talk about it on Wednesday's episode of Locked On Stars. Can't wait to see you there.
That's all for today on Locked On Now NHL. Make sure you check out your Locked On podcast as well as Locked On NHL. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Now.